We have been translating for a long time. In fact, as one who has translated almost 15 books from Telugu literature into English, I must know how translation does not work. We did a lot of work, but we are always disappointed. Why is this? This is not a good translation after all. So we'll talk about that. What is the conventional, traditional understanding of translation? What is the traditional concept of translation? Indian literary theory takes the word into two parts, Shabda and Artha. Shabda is the sound part, Artha is the meaning part. There are texts like Veda, which are totally Shabda. You cannot translate it, because you cannot translate the sound of Veda in the Swara of Veda, and therefore Veda was never translated in India, until of course recently, which is nonsense anyway. Okay? Next group of texts are called Purana. Purana, they are Artha Pradhana texts. The meaning is important there, not the words in which the text is told. That you can translate. Mahabharata, Ramayana, any of the Puranas, sure, go ahead, translate. Because the words in which the text is produced is not important. The meaning is important. You can always take the meaning and give it your own words to it. The Ubhaya Pradhana text, that is, the sound is important and also the meaning. You know something? Poetry was never translated in India. Kalidasa, Bhavabhuti, and all those great poets of Sanskrit were never translated into any other language. Why? Because they are combined inseparably with the sound of the word, and sound cannot be translated. So what is it we translate after all? Kalidasa, Bhavabhuti, all these great poets, they were never translated into any Indian language. Either you read them in Sanskrit or you don't read them. Something many people do not realize. In fact, for so much translation that was made from the Puranas, Shastras and all those, there is no word for translation in Indian languages. We borrowed the word Anuvada, which doesn't mean anything. It means say following somebody. So that's a low translation. It's not a translation of the word. But then, without translation, there is no literature in many of the languages. What do we do? Let's take the case of Telugu, which I know more than any other language. Nannaya, 11th century poet, who translated Mahabharata into Telugu, says this. He was called the first poet in Telugu. This is what he says. Rajaraja, his patron, asked him, Jananuta Krishna Dvaipayana Muni Vrushava Abhita Mahabharata Baddha Nirupidardhamu Yerpada Teluguna Rachiyimpumu Adhikati Shaktimayam. Rajaraja was telling his poet, compose in Telugu the meaning embedded in Mahabharata of the great sage Krishna Dvaipayana. You have a powerful mind. So he was asking, Mahabharata translated word to word. There is a meaning embedded in Mahabharata. Take that meaning out and say it in Telugu. Follow very carefully. So he's not asking Mahabharata to be translated word to word. There is a meaning in it. It's baddha, bound in it. Unpack that meaning and take that meaning and translate in Telugu. So, you may ask this question. Was a poem ever translated? The answer is no. A poem was never translated. So what are we doing? What are we doing when I'm translating Telugu poetry into English? honestly, I'm violating tradition. I'm not doing what the tradition wanted me to do. If tradition wanted to me follow the tradition, I should not translate. Poetry cannot be translated. But I'm violating the tradition. So what do you do when they violate the tradition? This is exactly where we come from. How do we translate? Develop a new protocol. Translate the reader. That's the more important thing first. Not translate the text, but translate the reader. Telugu and English are worlds apart. Syntactically, semantically, and culturally. We have to do this in a language which is not anywhere close to the. You probably know this. Telugu and all other Indian languages are subject, object, verb languages, SOV languages. English is SVO language. So there's a huge difference in the syntax itself. So when you take an English poem, you have to turn it upside down and pronounce at the end and come. Telugu has long compounds, longer than Sanskrit. And what do you do when you have a compound like that? Look at this. All that in the red, it's one compound. This is what Peddana was saying about Pravara, who saw the Himalaya mountain for the first time. And how did it go? Just listen to it. Atazanikanche bhumisurudu Amparachumbi sirasaracheri patala muhurlutada banga taranga mudanga nisvana sputanatananu rupa paripulla kalapa kalapi jalam kataka charatkarim karakampita salam shita shairam. What do you do with it? How do you translate it to English? Give it up and say, I cannot do that. Okay? Look at this. The whole English red line is one long compound. We break it up for the meaning of it. Not even try to translate the sound. You cannot translate texture. Don't attempt for that. Read it and say what you want to say. This is what we did. The Brahmin went and saw snow mountain, its tall peaks, kissing the expanse of sky, with many rivers rushing downward, rumbling like the beating of a drum, and on, while peacocks danced in time, spreading their splendid tails, and elephants roaming the slopes, shook the solitaries with their trunks. What a weak text it is compared to what was in Telugu. But that's all we can do. But look at this. More importantly, in Telugu, I'll go back and see what we have there. As the object of what he saw, snow mountain, at the end of the line. In our translation, it comes in the very first line. Look at the last. Sita Shailamun. That's the object. And it can come at the end of the poem. Kanche is the verb. Kanche is right here. Bhumisurudu, the Brahmin. Sita Shailamun, the mountain, comes at the very end of the long compound. Whereas, in our translation, what do you have to do? Saw snow mountain right there. You have to put snow mountain in the very first line itself. So we have to turn the poem upside down. We have to begin at the end, bring it there. That is what you have to do when you are translating subject, object, verb language into subject, verb, object language. Suppose you say Rama killed Ravana. That's English. Rama is the subject, Kill is the verb in the middle and Ravana is the end. There's a joke. If you said kill, why would Ravana stay there? He would run away. But that's English. Whereas in Telugu, Ravana killed. So, this kind of a simple syntactical variation makes you want to play games in the translation of beginning your poem at the end and bringing to the end, bring to the beginning. This is Krishna Raya, who has been talked about by his poet, who is describing him. And this long compound in red is a whole story. Prativarsha Vashantotsava Kutukagata Sukara Nikara Kumpita Kavya Smruti Romancha Vishankita Chaturanta Puravadhu Prasadana Rasika. It's a vocative. And the vocative tells a whole story. Prativarsha Vasantotsava Kutuka Agata Sukavinikara Gumpita Kavya Smruti Romancha Vishankita Chaturanta Puravadhu Prasadana Rasika. So what do you do in translate? You have to unpack the compound, and this is how it goes. You begin with your hair stands on end. With excitement. When you think of poems sung by good poets who come every year for your spring festival, you are skilled at comforting your wives and they suspect that you are aroused by thinking of another woman. He is thinking of the poems. And the poems give him goosebumps. And his hair stand on end. And his wives think, no, you are thinking of another woman. And he has to have the skill of comforting themselves. That's not what the story. I was thinking of the poems that the poets have sung today at the Vasantotsava, Vasanta Spring Festival. And remembering those poems, my hair stood on end. That whole long story is composed in one long compound. I have to break up the compound and produce this. Prativarsha Vasantotsava Utugagata Sukavi Nikara Gumpita Kavya Smruti Romancha Vishankita Chaturanta Puravadhu Prasadana Rasika. For every year, Prativarsha, poets come out of curiosity, out of their own joy. And they produce poems, Kumpita Kavya. That's Smruti, remembering those poems, Romancha. You get Romancha in the night, thinking of the poems which you heard in the day. But Vishankita Chatura Antapuravadhu. Antapuravadhu suspects you. What you have to do? Prasadana Rasika. You can tell them, no, that's not the story. I was not thinking any woman. I was thinking a poem. That's why my hair stood on end. It's a fascinating verse, telling the whole story in one compound. So, what we lost here? One long compound. We have to unpack the compound and tell the story behind the compound and tell what happened. So, is it a good translation? I don't think so, but the only translation we can produce. Now the question, what does a good translation create for you? What does a good translation do for a poem? Read that very carefully. A poem is more than a poem. A poem is more than one poem. In that poem you have in your language, there is another poem embedded in it. Okay? And good translator sees in the poem a hidden one that the native readers may not see. Native reader out of habit read the poem and they miss out the poem that was in it. and a translator has to put it out and produce in translation. And then the native readers who read the translation say, hey, we didn't know that. There is a poem in our poem, and that showing this translation is giving it to us. So that's what a good translation should do. Translation is also an interpretation. There is no translation which is simply literally there. A good translation is an interpretation. So interpret it slightly differently and tell the native speakers, hey, this is the poem you have not seen. Look at it. And now, when they read the original poem in Telugu, they can say, yeah, there was in it. We didn't know how I missed it. That's what a good translation does. That's the purpose of a good translation. Every translation we produced gave us this kind of an opportunity of interpreting the translation and showing that it has in it a different poem which the native speakers were not reading, and that's what we are bringing out. That's what a good translation is. We tried to produce. I gave you already compounds, long compounds, which cannot be easily translated. Unpack them. There's something more interesting in Telugu poetry and Sanskrit poetry. Something mind-bogglingly different. Let me show it. This is what Chitrakavya, a poem written like a cow urinates. Gomutrika bandha. And they write the poem in that order. How do we translate this? We don't translate this. We have to write an essay. Hey, this poem is supposed to make you look at the same syllable again and again and again as you go back and forth. I'll give you even more complex one. This is Kundali Nagabandha. This is like a serpent, and letters are put in it. Why? There is a reason. You know something? This is Narada was praising Krishna in this form. What's he doing? You go through it and you can see that one letter, you go over it again and again and again. You see that? So repeating a syllable when you are reading this poem is exactly what makes you think of Krishna again and again and again. This was the idea. So the point is, you can read it a number of ways. The point is that you have to, each letter acquires an independence of its own. And you repeat that letter over and over again. And by that, you think of Krishna in that way. This is Bandha. Okay? If that is the translation, what do? We write an essay about the Nagabandha and Gomutrika Bandha and other those things, and write an essay why this poem is here in this forum when Narada is praising Krishna. And then you say, oh, that's what's happening. The poem is not there for the meaning of the poem. The meaning of the poem is very simple. Poem is there for repeating the syllable again and again and again as you go through this. It's an enormously interesting text. In fact, there is a lot of discussion on this, but nobody was able to actually interpret why these Bandha poems were composed. And we were trying to do, in the translation, the Harshita Kamath and I translated this text, Parijata Paharanam. Parijata, stealing of the poem, stealing of the tree, Parijata tree. And that's where this, at the end, when Narada was leaving, he gives this kind of praise to Krishna and goes away. So what's going on there? So there is a long essay that produces the meaning of the poems. That's where I say you have to bring the reader or translate the reader. Tell the reader, in our culture, texts work this way. In our culture, texts work in a way that you cannot imagine happening in English. So unless you understand how the text works, you cannot translate. So that's what I mean by translating the reader. Prepare the reader. Read something that's entirely different and new for his understanding of poetry. Now, what is the ultimate meaning of all? In Parijata Apaharanamu, the whole idea is to make human beings superior. Parijata tree was stolen from Indra's garden and planted, if you know the story, and planted in Satyabhama's backyard. Satyabhama was upset because a flower that was given by Narada, it's a very interesting situation. Narada came when Krishna was sitting in Rukmani's house, and he brought this wonderful flower and he gave it to Krishna. Hey Krishna, this is a great flower. No human being can ever get it. This flower never wilts. It never fades. It never loses its fragrance. There's something more interesting for Rukmani. You know what? When you're making love to her, if you're tired, this flower makes you come back to strength which you had not there before. You can make love to her without losing strength. It's a very open, very clear story that Krishna was telling. That Narada was telling. Why was he doing that? Narada is capable of producing quarrels. That's exactly his business. He knew that Satyabhama was very proud of her beauty, very proud of her beauty, and very proud of the importance Krishna was giving to her among all the other co-wives. He says that too. That Satyabhama thinks that she was the greatest of all your wives. No, she is not. You are going to be Rukmani with this flower. You are going to be the greatest woman of all Krishna's wives. And there are people, maid servants of other wives who come there to spy on what was happening in this area, go back to report. And they go back to report to Satyabhama. Hey Satyabhama, you know what happened? Your husband, who pretended he was in love with you and you loved you more than anybody else, actually he loves Rukmani more than anybody else. He gave the flower to her and didn't give it to you. And Satyabhama was very, very upset. And Krishna goes there, and Satyabhama was upset. I don't know, you know this perhaps. There is a room for a woman who is angry, Kopagala. In a palace, there is a room where women who are angry can go and sit there and stand and lie down. So it is Kopagala. Krishna sees, oh my God, she's in a Kopagala. I have to go and appease her. So tries to slowly tell her that she really loves her. But Satyabhama would not listen. He tries to fall on his feet, on her feet, and she kicks him with her left foot. And Krishna says, oh, I hope your foot did not hurt by hitting me. And finally, he says, listen, you're thinking about a flower. I will bring the whole tree for you, not just one flower, and plant it in your backyard. How about that? And then Satyabhama says, okay, that's fine then. So that's exactly how the story goes. And the interesting thing about it is that Indra, who doesn't know Krishna was God, when Krishna was stealing the tree and taking it away with him, Indra fights a battle with him. Indra calls all his assistants, all the lords of different directions, and they fight in behalf of Krishna, Indra. But they fight and fight and fight, cannot really defeat Indra, defeat Krishna. And Indra finally uses his final weapon, his Vajrayudha. And that weapon is futile. Krishna is not defeated even by that. Then Indra falls on Krishna's feet. Hey Krishna, you are God. I am sorry, I am fighting with you. So finally, the interesting thing is how the tree is taken on Garuda, the bird, and goes to his own city, where Satyabhama and others live. Beautiful descriptions given there. How the fragrance of these flowers, fragrance of the tree, made old people young. Suddenly everybody became young. And having planted the tree in the backyard of Satyabhama, and the whole love story happens later. But the idea is ultimately, while Narada was praising Krishna as God in all these cryptic verses, Krishna knows that he is a human being and other people should treat him as a human being as he was. In a way, Parijata Paranam is a celebration of a human being. Human love is superior to anybody or anyone. I do not know if I can go into the theory. Rasa can be enjoyed only by a human being. Gods do not enjoy rasa. If you don't have any pain, you don't have any pleasure either. Gods who don't have any pain don't understand what love without pleasure, love without pain exists. So rasa is enjoyed only by human beings, not by gods. That's what is presented in that text. That text ultimately tells you that being human is superior to being gods. Does anybody who reads Satyabhama, reads Parijata Apahanamu think that way? No. That's the idea. When we translate, we show, hey, this is the meaning of the poem. You miss it, but that's exactly the meaning of the poem. And that's how translations tell the original readers what the book is about, how they should understand. So translation not only reproduces in a different language what the book is, in a rather faint way, but tells you there's something the book has which you have missed, and this is it. So that's the idea of our translating all of these books that we have done. Translating the reader is each of these our books have a long afterword, not just a preface, but a long afterword. The afterword tells how you should read the book, what exactly is the meaning of the book. Then you should go back to translation and read it. So our effort is to make the book accessible to people of a new culture, including us for that matter. We have missed the original meaning of the book, and this is the original meaning of the text, and we are giving it. The idea of a translation is to make your own text accessible to you. Translating the reader has double-sided purpose. Translate the foreign reader, but translate the Indian reader also, because you have not read the book like it was before. So in effect, translation is an interesting job. When we translated all the books we have done so far, we discovered, hey, we didn't know that. There is this meaning in this book, and we should write about it. And you know something? Telugu readers do not know that meaning either. If they take the time to read the translation and the afterward, they would have known it. But unfortunately, not many people read it because they think, oh, we know the book in Telugu. We don't have to read in translation. That's where we're coming in. Something else going on in translation. What I call the politics of translation. In Telugu, at one point of time, it was necessary to have a Sanskrit original for the respectability of the work. So if the Sanskrit original is not there, they invented one. Because that time, translations are more respected if they had a Sanskrit original. But the same thing, borrowed from a regional language, no, it doesn't have that. Okay? There is a book called Kridabhiramam. Probably you heard it. In fact, it's worth a separate lecture on just that. Kridabhiramam is still discussed among Telugu literary critics whether Srinatha wrote it or Vallabharaya wrote it. That's not the issue. The issue is different. Kridabhiramam is a parody. Parody of the whole culture. It parodies not just the culture, but parodies the convention of finding a Sanskrit original for every work you do. So he invented a Sanskrit original called Premabhiramam. And I am translating Premabhiramam into Kridabhiramam. You know what? Even today, number of people are still looking, oh, there must be that Premabhiramam somewhere. Let's look for it. No, it doesn't exist. He's making a joke. He's telling you Premabhiramu does not exist, but the culture wanted to invent something, he invented it. How many people read Kridabhiramam that way? They were only reading from the point of view whether Srinatha wrote it or Vallabharaya wrote it. Because there are a lot of verses which are borrowed from Srinatha into that book. They are not borrowed, they are like Srinatha, a parody of Srinatha's work. A parody does not actually produce the original, but it looks like the original. If you don't see it's a parody, you think it's the original. And that's what Kridabhiramam is. I wish I had time to give a separate lecture on Kridabhiramam itself. It's a fascinating work. English is an old language. For good or bad, if our literature has to go into the world, we have to go through English. And that's why we're translating. But in translating, we're translating the English readers, transforming them to think like us. That's what a good translation should do, and that's what we thought we were doing in all our translations. I don't know if you succeeded, but you should tell me when you finish reading any book at all, then tell me, send me an email. Hey, this is not what a good translation is. It's a horrible translation. I'd like to hear that. Thank you.